Welcome to the Valley Girls, the weekly podcast where we explore everything there is to see, do, try, eat, and experience in New York's Hudson Valley by talking to the makers, the doers, the growers, the creators, and all the unique voices of the Hudson Valley. We're telling the Hudson Valley's story one episode at a time. I'm Jenny Leifer, a lifelong Hudson Valley resident. When I'm not co-hosting Valley Girls, you'll find me talking all about health and wellness, finding the best gluten-free eats in the Hudson Valley, and giving back to the community through volunteerism and service.
And I'm Jennifer Santiago, a Hudson Valley native who has spent the past 20 years living in Texas. I'm currently splitting my time between Texas and the Hudson Valley as I'm in the process of moving back, and I'm so excited to explore and rediscover everything I love about the region, including hiking, history, and the local arts scene. Welcome back to the Valley Girls podcast, where we're telling the Hudson Valley stories one episode at a time. Today, we're talking to two members of a local co-op on a mission to keep furniture out of landfills. And we're talking to one of our favorite local photographers about capturing golden hour in the Hudson Valley. But first, we had so much fun asking our listeners for suggestions for my New York playlist, which you can get on the About page on our website, by the way, that we've got another question. And I mean, not to start beef with any other local podcasts, but I'm pretty sure our listeners are the coolest. So next week, Jenny, on our 5th episode, you and I are going to talk to each other about a field trip that we took recently. But one of the things that happened was we stumbled on a restaurant that made you extremely happy, and it gave us the idea to ask for suggestions. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So we had an amazing day in Beacon, which I'm so excited to talk about with all of our listeners next week. And while we were there, I discovered this incredible food vendor in the Beacon Food Hall serving delicious, fresh Nicaraguan food, and his entire menu was gluten-free. Definitely check out El Nica. You will not be disappointed. So as many of you know, I have celiac disease, and unfortunately, the only treatment for celiac is adherence to a strict gluten-free diet. I've been gluten-free for about 12 years now, and I will say that as difficult as it was in the beginning, I've adjusted to it. And in the last decade or so, honestly, gluten-free options have become a lot more abundant, not only in the grocery stores, but in restaurant offerings as well. There are so many incredible restaurants in our area, and a large percentage of them are very gluten-free friendly. I have always been a foodie, as I know Jen is as well. And I am still a foodie today. And as I say in my intro, I am all about finding the best gluten-free eats in the Hudson Valley. I know a lot of great places around here, but I am always looking for new ones. So I'm asking you, our listeners, to help me out here. What are your favorite gluten-free friendly restaurants in the Hudson Valley? I love all kinds of food, including Italian, Asian, Indian, Latin American, you name it. Now, I can go to any restaurant and typically find something, even if it's just a salad. But I love being able to go to a restaurant and see that little GF or GFO for gluten-free option right on the menu. It not only tells me that I have more options, but also it means that they're really knowledgeable about gluten-free and cross-contamination and things like that. So it's really exciting when I can go to a restaurant and order things other than just the salad.
You were so happy when we got to El Nica and it said right on the menu, everything is gluten-free. I think you gasped out of joy.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. There is no greater joy for me than seeing everything gluten-free. There is a great restaurant down in the city as well, Friedman's, where they have everything, almost everything on the menu can be made gluten-free. So if you're not gluten-free, you can get it as is, but they also have a separate gluten-free fryer, and they have a whole separate thing where everything on the menu can pretty much be made gluten-free. And so, yes, when I find places like El Nica and I see that, I am just so excited. And I'm like a kid in a candy store. So I get very excited about that. So Hit me up with your favorite finds and hidden hideaways. I will travel up and down the Hudson Valley for some good eats, so nothing is too far. You can message us on Instagram or Facebook, contact us through our website, valleygirlspodcast.com, or email us at contact@valleygirlspodcast.com. Can't wait to hear from you all.
I am here talking to two women who have a unique Hudson Valley business. It is called Found and Fixed. I'm talking to LV and to Susannah Bradley. And I think we found each other on Instagram. Their Instagram has a lot of really great content that is found and fixed @_HB. And I'm fascinated by what you are doing there. And I would love to hear about what's going on at Found and Fixed.
Thank you so much for having us on. I'm LV. I joined Found and Fixed maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. We have 2 tenants to our business. Started about a year and a half ago by Justine Porter and Gabriel Jasmine. And, like true pandemicers, just needed hobbies and were, fighting and sourcing furniture and fixing it up. So the 2 tenants will kind of always be that we source furniture that's 100% wood that would have otherwise been destined for the landfill, and we fix it up and make it more modern. And then the other kind of side of the business is that we take commission pieces and fix our customers, like grandma's old hutch and things that they don't want to get rid of, but perhaps aren't really made for modern living. And those are like the 2 sides of what we do. We also have been dabbling with workshops and events. And but as we've grown the business, right now we're trying to grow and scale as well as keep the customers at the forefront. We're really all about sustainability, using eco-friendly products, and just saving the furniture from going into the landfill.
Yeah, I think we also found that, as we were setting up our own homes, that it's so easy to buy from Wayfair or to buy from Amazon, especially when you have an idea of, oh yeah, I really want an orange piece to go with this orange art or whatever. It's so easy to go to Google and to buy something online, but then that thing comes to you and you're like, oh wow, this is a piece of crap. I can't believe I just spent $200 or $300 on this thing. And even a year later, my kids have destroyed it. My cat has destroyed it. The finish is coming off. It's hard as a rock, or it's way too soft, or, it's easy. It's so easy to buy furniture online, but it's also very easy to be super disappointed by it. And we saw all this great furniture that was going in the bin and thought, surely there's a better alternative to buying on Wayfair, that is kind of a crappy experience. And as Lauren was saying, at Found and Fixed, we're all about that environmental impact, saving something from going in the bin, and also creating something really beautiful, something you can cherish that is updated and more modern, and is a much nicer buying experience to Wayfair because you get to support wonderful local businesses, local people. You get to hear the story of the pieces. And we also, if you see something in the shop that we're in process on, you're like, oh, I love that. Could y'all paint that green for me? We also love collaborating with people on finishing stuff that we have in process and really customizing things to their taste. So it's a much more fun process of buying furniture too, to work with us.
I love everything about that. I'm super into the sustainability angle. We actually have a friend, Leah, who is starting a new business in Kingston called Folk Refillery. And so she's all about, let's not have plastic. Let's use, sustainable packaging and eliminate all the waste. So I love all of this. Also, I'm in my 40s. I don't want to do flat pack furniture ever again in my life. Also, I love pieces that have a story, preferably one that involves a benign ghost. But I just think it's so great that you're keeping, junk out of the landfills and giving people an opportunity to keep maybe heirloom pieces that, you're like, I can't throw this away. It was my great grandmother's. My mom kept it all these years, but it looks rough. So it's amazing that you have an alternative for that. Are you thinking about any kind of workshops where I could bring a piece in and you show me how to fix it and I use your tools in your workshop?
Yes, actually, that's something that we're working on, not this year, but for the future. So as a co-op, we collaborate on all of these ideas. And we had a really fun, huge team meeting with lots of Post-its and lots of ideas of all of the revenue streams we could explore. And we dabbled in a lot of these without any strategy or direction. And we had varying degrees of popularity with RSVPs. And what we had realized was that there's a lot of kind of red tape that forbids us from being able to do it the way that we want to do it, whether it's like insurance issues or transportation issues and staff and accessibility. And we kind of just aren't there yet, although we wish it was as simple as how it sounds. But this is part of what we're growing into, as we kind of expand and, earn more revenue, we can pay for the quality experience that we want to have in a program like that.
Tell me a little bit about the co-op.
We are a worker-owned co-op. So, typical sort of corporate organizational structures, there are private owners. But the co-op structure, we are all owners. So Justine and Gabe are the founders and the official owners right now. And then there are another 6 of us who are in process of becoming owners. So of course, becoming an owner of a business is a pretty big deal. You can't just be like, I want to do it, and then they let you in. There's a little bit of a process to make sure everybody works well together and you want the responsibility and the commitment of owning a business. So 6 of us are in that process. So hopefully we'll have more owners soon. But we run the co-op in a really different way. It's, there's not one CEO and then a bunch of people refinishing furniture or something like that. Like, we all have special skills that we contribute. Like LV does a lot of the marketing work. I do a lot of the sort of like business back-end finance stuff with Justine. But we also, almost all of us also work in the workshop refinishing furniture. So we don't, there's not like this real hardline division of like people who do the work and then like people who are in the office, like you may typically see in like a construction company, for example. And we all make decisions together. So like, for example, something we're trying to figure out right now is our pay philosophy. Like, how should we pay people? Should we pay people like the going rate for what that job is? Should we all get paid the same amount? Should you get paid more if you've been here for longer? Should you get paid more if you work more hours? Or like, should your hourly rate be more if you work more hours because maybe you're like more committed? Or, what's our pay philosophy going to be? So there's a team of us who are doing research on that, and then we'll come back and we'll decide as a group. Everyone will have input into that decision and make their opinions known. And we don't always decide things by consensus, which is where everyone agrees. Sometimes it's by a vote, or sometimes someone will just decide. But there's always that input piece, which is really important in co-ops, that it's communal. It's communal decision making. We're communally running this business. It's not top down. It's not this hierarchy of this like, 1 or 2 people at the top making decisions, or 1 or 2 people at the top really benefiting from the labor of everyone else.
We had a lot of help too. There's a organization in the area called Hudson Valley Co-op, or Co-op Hudson Valley. So they provide a lot of resources and education for how to do it. But what I would say the biggest difference is that there's like kind of a lot of collaboration. So that means a lot of meetings. And sometimes that was a lot to get adjusted to, but then now we're a lot more efficient with that.
So I have a totally different topic that I wanted to talk to you about. Like I said, I love your Instagram. You are prolific content creators, and I love every time I open Instagram, there's something cool from you guys, and I love that. But there was a post that you put up last week. I think it was ULV. That was the 10 things I love about living in the Hudson Valley. And the post said, this is my 3rd time moving away from the Hudson Valley and moving back, and now I'm here for good. And that, I felt that, because I am a Poughkeepsie girl, grew up in the Hudson Valley, lived all around, and now I've been living in Texas for quite a long time. And I am doing everything I can to get back home to the Hudson Valley for good. And I just feel like when you are from the area and then you go someplace else, you realize how special the Hudson Valley is and all the things that you took for granted when you lived there. So I would love to hear either of your or both of your experiences with that.
Yeah, I can go first. So we like a lot of us have that in common. So we're 8 friends, that are doing this together. A lot of us have this experience of moving back here or moving here for the first time in the last few years. I certainly have moved away and moved back here about 3 times and lived in other cities. I lived in England for a bit. I lived in San Francisco. I lived in Providence, Rhode Island. I lived in Charlottesville, Virginia. I lived in Austin, Texas. I think that's it. And moving back here, I always wanted to get away. I didn't have the experience of like, oh, I miss it here. Like there were certain things like the bomb Italian deli sandwiches. There were like pizza, right? Bagels. Like there were certain things like that. But I was really excited to go and live in a more metro area and kind of get my like formative growing and cultural learnings that I needed to. When I came back here though, it was such a interesting time for everybody. And it was so wonderful being able to afford a place on my own for the first time in a long time, just with the nature of this area. Although now it feels like it's not really that much more affordable, but at the time it did when I moved back here in 2020. There are so many things that you could offer here. I always thought about being like that expression of being a big fish in a small pond. That certainly rings more true here. There's so much opportunity. And it's a big challenge as well because you don't have those like born in social kind of systems that cities do. So you really have to create your own and you have to create your own hobbies. And it has been a real struggle to connect with, quote unquote, my people. So that's the other thing about Found and Fixed is that we all kind of struggled with similar experiences of moving back here and having a harder time making friends, as well as, the furniture aspect really brought me to Found and Fixed in the sense that like I had purchased all of this affordable, quote unquote, furniture from Wayfair and Amazon when I first moved back here because it was like, oh shoot, I just got to figure it out real fast. And that's how I met my people was through furniture. So in the Hudson Valley, I'm noticing now more and more that there are those people, but you really have to seek them out. You're not going to meet them at a bar. You're not going to meet them, the traditional. You have to find these like artsy, intentional type workshops where you get to meet kind of all walks of life. But I'd love to like kick it to Susannah and kind of hear their experience on this as well.
Yeah, I'm not born and raised Hudson Valley. I am actually from Texas. So, Jennifer, I understand your strife. I came up here for college. I went to Bard College and through various twists and turns, ended up staying just because I loved the area so much and was here for almost a decade before I had a work opportunity that they wanted to send me to London. And I was like, great. So I went and lived in London for 3 years and then they sent me to Australia. I lived there for almost 2 years. But I'm just not a city person and ended up getting pregnant when I was in Australia. And Australia is very far away. I don't know if any of you or any of your listeners have ever traveled out there, but the flight itself is almost 24 hours, depending on where you're going to in the States. And you lose a day, right? So when we got into that mindset of, okay, we're starting a family, suddenly it just felt a lot more pressing to be close to family. Like if anything happened to my parents who are, getting to be in their 80s, it would take me 2 full days to get back. So I thought, you know what, it's time to go back to the States. And we were looking around at different places we could go. And the Hudson Valley was just such a clear winner, that it's so beautiful here. There's amazing scenery. There's amazing outdoor opportunities. There's just something beautiful and magical about the light. I know the Hudson Valley School of Painters can be certainly critiqued for many reasons. It was mostly rich old white men who, some would say contributed to the erasure of indigenous people and that whole colonizer conquest. And also they really nailed something about how beautiful the Hudson Valley is and how magical the light is here. We don't have the tallest mountains, but what is it about the Catskills? They're just so stunning. And the river is so beautiful. I love sailing and we sail on the river every summer. We go camping. We have an amazing garden. We have incredible friends who are so interesting. And, everything from floral designers working with, the who's who of New York City, to people who are writing novels and books, to people who have these incredible businesses where they are tinkering and figuring out these really interesting sort of like construction problems and making passive homes, and just such interesting people. Such a beautiful way of life. I just love it here so much. There's always interesting things to do and interesting people to meet and talk to. And I can't imagine a better place to live or to raise a family.
Susannah, I feel like you nailed it, because it's the people and all of the quirky careers and hobbies and creativity that the area just seems to breed that. And, that's what we're here for. That's what we want this podcast to be, is talking to all the cool people who are doing cool things in this area. And also LV, this is how I know we're going to be friends, because you mentioned the pizza and the bagels and the food. So the central drama of my life living in Texas is that nobody in Texas knows what a black and white cookie is. And I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Florida, and he said they get them at the grocery store, but they're a joke. And so whenever I'm home, the first thing that Jenny has to do is either take me to Dysings or take me to Adams so I can get my black and white cookie fix. My dream black and white cookie is the Pastry Garden in Poughkeepsie. But anyway, yeah. So the food,
that's right down the road from me.
Oh, so good. Everything at the Pastry Garden is so good, but that to me is the quintessential black and white cookie. So thank you both so much for sharing your story and your time with us, and for the cool work you're doing at Found and Fixed to give new life to old pieces and keep that Hudson Valley history alive in the furniture that we decorate our lives with.
Thank you for having us. And we have a website, also on Instagram. Reach out. It's foundandfixedhv.com is our website.
Great. We'll put that link in the show notes, and we'll put it on our website so people can find you.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Today, we're talking to Bentley Potter, a lifelong Hudson Valley resident. Bentley is a brilliant photographer who was kind enough to share many of his gorgeous shots of the Hudson Valley with us on his Instagram page at bentley.potter.photography. He also does real estate photography and videography and is an FAA certified drone pilot. And as a friend to all creatures, great and small, he is the founder of Lost Pets of the Hudson Valley, which since 2012 has been harnessing the power of social media to reunite Hudson Valley residents with their beloved fur babies. Thank you so much for being here, Bentley.
Really excited.
So I'm excited to talk to you because I am, without being weird, kind of a super fan. I started following you on Instagram several years ago now. I think Hudson Valley Magazine reposted one of your photos and tagged you. And so this is something I talk about a lot. People probably get sick of me talking about this, but I'm from the Hudson Valley. I grew up in the Hudson Valley. I'm on my way back to the Hudson Valley, but I've been living in Texas for the past 20 years. And when you are from the Hudson Valley and you are not there for whatever reason, you crave the landscape in a way that I can't explain unless you've experienced it. And so, without being too dramatic, your photos have really been like a balm for my soul when I've been really homesick, which is most of the time. So I love everything that you post. And you obviously love it too. I can tell from your pictures how much you love the landscapes. So what's your favorite beauty spot to take photos, and why do I already know you're going to say the Ashokan Reservoir?
Yeah, that's well, that was probably because that was my first subject that I was drawn to in this area when I got into photography and started kind of seeing things differently. It's funny saying that because I've lived here my whole life, but it wasn't until maybe 12, 13 years ago where I started noticing things that I wasn't really, seeing for whatever reason. Like when I started to just adventure more and I was traveling with a photography friend and I started to see things, just kind of realized, holy cow, this area is really beautiful. So when you say you live in Texas, but you see my photos and it makes you, miss our area, and it kind of brings you back home. I get that a lot from people that have moved away from the area. So, and that's kind of my goal with photography. Like, besides making you want to feel like you are there in that photo with me, like seeing what I'm seeing, but also making you want to realize, like, in case you haven't, a lot of people do, but some people, move away for a reason, and, like to see our area is really, like, it's special. It's special.
Do you find that, yeah, it is. Do you find that when you are in the mindset of photography, or you go out with your camera, do you find that you see things differently? Are you framing it in your mind as a photograph? And I'm especially interested, you really have an eye for light. You have lots of great shots of reflections on the water, and you have captured some epic sunsets. So I am mainly interested in your tips on how you capture that light. And sunsets, no matter how talented you are, you're going to get 5-6 minutes. So, how can us mere mortals get some great shots like that?
That's everything in photography, and so I'm a big fan of golden hour light, that last hour before sunset, and especially this time of year, fall, winter, the way that light hits that last hour, it's special. So sunsets, you have, like you said, you have a very limited window. You have that 5 minutes or so leading up to sunset, and then 5 to 10 minutes after, where you get those really, like, where it starts to fade out, but you get those really dark, deep colors. And it's yeah. So basically, sometimes I have a vision in my head of what I want to capture, and the other times I'm looking for something to come to me. I want to see, like, I don't really have an idea, but I have an idea for a spot, and I'm just like, maybe something develops, and then something happens. But yeah, so for me, it's 50-50. Sometimes I have an idea and it never materializes. There's times I'm like, okay, this is going to be a banger sunset. You could tell it's been setting up all day. And then you get there and it's like, it just fiddles out. And I'm like, oh man. I'm like, all right, well, that's not great. So, and then other times I'm like, I don't think it's going to be much, but let me just go somewhere and check it out. And then it becomes the sunset of a lifetime, So, yeah, it for me, you could be at the right spot, the right view, everything, but if the lighting's not right, it doesn't matter how good you are. It's not meant to be.
Yeah, it sounds like you're advocating patience, which is a problem because I have none. I also like that you said, we'll see what develops. I don't know if that was an intentional photography pun, but it should be.
So. It wasn't intentional, but yeah, I'll go with it. Yeah, it was intentional.
Yeah. Take the credit.
Yeah.
So, Bentley, for those of us who may have a little less talent, or a lot less talent in my case, and we're only working with our phone cameras, can you give us some pointers maybe so we can still get some Instagram-worthy shots of this gorgeous region of ours?
Now, luckily, most of the smartphones out there now, the cameras on it, the lenses are just incredible, and they're almost very close to rivaling, like, a DSLR, So, yeah, it's amazing. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, you got to have somewhat of a quality camera, like cell phone or mobile camera. But yeah, basically, it's all about having just a good eye, right? And I know that sounds cliche, but like, it's about what you see. If you see something that, you go to let's say you go to the reservoir or something, and you're looking to get a nice sunset shot, and you have your phone. The best tip I would say is just kind of, if there's something that you see that just stands out to you. I don't get very technical, because more times than not, it literally is point and click. Outside of, like, long exposure nighttime stuff, if you want to get light streaks, or you're doing any sort of nighttime photography, that's where it gets a little bit more technical. But if you're just looking out, like, hey, I want to capture a waterfall, I want to capture a sunset, or I just want to capture a really cool scene, it's literally trust your eye, find something, and just kind of most basic settings on your smartphone. You don't have to ever tweak really to get, like, a really great shot. So it's just finding the right spot. I think, trusting your eye. If there's something, that if you're into photography at some point, what I mean? Like, there's something that's like, oh, wow. Like, it just, your eye sees it and you just can't unsee it, and just stay with it. And, like, Jennifer was saying, a lot of times it's patience.
I also think that there is something there is an element of that when I look at your photos, I can see how passionately you feel about what you're looking at. And that only ever works for me when I am photographing food because I get very excited. And on episode 2, we talked to Enrica Martin, who's a pastry chef who owns the Sweet Spot here in Kingston. And Jenny asked her, do you do your own photography of your cakes and cookies and pastries? And she said she does. And I'm fascinated by food photography. I know that's a science unto itself with food stylists, but you recently posted some shots for a project that you did, you said a couple years back. And so I would love any tips that you have for getting food photography, not that it's going to be in Food and Wine magazine, but some Instagram worthy food shots.
Kind of new to me. So as I've expanded my photography, I got into that. I kind of, branched out more recently. I have friends that own restaurants that wanted marketing material for their new website and stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll branch out. I'll try it. I don't like to paint it with a broad brush. That's just my, personal preference. I feel like you kind of capturing food. It depends on the restaurant. Some like very bright and airy photos in a very bright and airy restaurant. If there's like a more of a moody restaurant that, you kind of capture it differently, maybe darker tones, shadows, stuff like that to get creative. But my recommendation, with food, at least what I figured out with food photography is close-ups are really cool. Like getting in, like if you have like a taco that has like a dressing that's like oozing off of it, like get right in on that. And like, that's really cool too. Over top shots are really cool too, to kind of show the whole depth of the plate. But I kind of like close-up shots with food. That's kind of like my go-to with that. It's not like a real estate where you're kind of backed up and you want to show the whole house. Food, you kind of want to get up close and personal, if you know what I mean. So close-up shots with food is definitely whether on overhead or right in front, like that's kind of how I go.
Yeah, now I know you just mentioned your real estate photography. I know a lot of your work is real estate photography and videography, including those amazing drone captures that you get. What's your favorite thing about working on real estate listings?
Well, working with really cool agents is fun, but I like to get to see the properties that have like the rolling hills, the multiple structures, the views of, if it's near the Catskills or near the reservoir, just seeing like a sprawling estate, which is really cool because, then that means I get to play with the drone, which is exciting, and flying around properties like that is just wild because, you can drive up to a property and be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. But when you see it from above and like a real sprawling like property, it's wild. And, to have that bird's eye view of a property, not only that is beautiful, but then you see its proximity to something beautiful, which you can't see from the ground. That's when it all kind of ties together. And that's where I get most excited. So when I get asked for a property like that, where there's going to be drone video, drone shots, and it's near some wild, beautiful, like landmark or, body of water or mountain range, I get really excited.
That's awesome. And I also wanted to ask you about, as I mentioned in your introduction, most people know about you through your amazing work with Lost Pets of the Hudson Valley. You founded Lost Pets of the Hudson Valley, and I have been watching your great work with that organization for over a decade now. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do? Are you looking for any volunteers at all? Just anything you can share about Lost Pets.
Volunteer help. I mean, we have a great team right now, so we're kind of set. But it's one of those things. It's volunteer work, so you have a little bit of a revolving door sometimes. So, we're always looking for good help, and anybody that cares, that has pets themselves or wants to, get involved with animal welfare. But it's great. It's really exciting. It works, and when it finally started to work after almost 6 months when I first started it, it was a slow crawl. Just getting people to buy into the idea of like one central page that, people come to share their lost or found pet. It took a while, but when it finally gained traction and people saw that it worked, the roof blew off, and it just keeps growing, and it keeps more importantly, it's helping more and more pets get reunited, and that was the goal. And so to see it work on that level in such a concentrated area, which was also the goal, because you could do Lost Pets of America, but how much is that going to help somebody in New York if the pet's missing in Idaho? You know what I mean? So it's like I think the reason why Lost Pets works so well is like you live in Kingston, you live in Hurley, and you see a pet go missing in that area, or you know somebody that lives on that street, or you drive by that street. It works because you can relate to the area. So that's why I wanted it to be so specialized and localized to a region.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been phenomenal. I mean, your organization must have helped, I want to say thousands at this point. Like, it's real.
Got this point.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
So we will put links in the show notes. But what is the page for Lost Pets of the Hudson Valley if people have lost a pet or would like to help somebody reunite with their pet?
It's lostpetshv.org, or you can just do Facebook / Lost Pets of the Hudson Valley. And it's on Instagram as well.
Well, it is worth noting, I know this is a podcast and you can't see us, but the best part of this interview so far has been Edwin the Chihuahua, speaking of pets, is starring in this interview, and he is wearing a very dapper sweater. It's like a black kind of Irish looking knit, and then has like a buffalo plaid check collar. So Bentley is going to send us a picture of Edwin. So we will put that up on the website for you because it's great. But before we let you go and let Edwin go back to sleep, we always ask all of our guests for kind of their Hudson Valley greatest hits. So what's on your list of favorites? What are the things you love the most besides the landscape, which obviously is, the star of the show?
The food and beverage spots. I am a big fan of, our area has an embarrassment of riches of really good restaurants and coffee shops and breweries, wineries. So, I'm a big fan of everything in our area. I'm a big foodie. I love good tasty beverages, and we have a lot of great places here, not just in Kingston but in the Hudson Valley. But I just, that's my thing. I love going out to like a great restaurant, so many great coffee shops here, Monkey Joe, Uptown Coffee. And, I'm a big taco guy, so I love Diego's and Upstate Tacos, Santa Fe, stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of this area. Back 20 years ago, you had to go north or south to get a really great culinary experience, and now it's all right here in the Hudson Valley, and that's amazing. And so it's right in our backyard, which is special. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, besides having the Culinary Institute in our backyard right here in Hyde Park, and we get so many amazing chefs graduating from the CIA and staying in the area and opening these amazing restaurants, we have such an influx of people from the city too. So they're opening great places, and just our local chefs. I mean, it's phenomenal. I agree. It's unbelievable to me that for such a small area, small relative, we have so many amazing restaurants and places to get great food and drink. So I totally agree with that. So thank you again for sharing your time with us, Bentley, especially when you're, out there saving all the Hudson Valley's lost dogs and cats. We will share links, as Jen mentioned, in the show notes. Again, you can find Bentley on Instagram at bentley.potter.photography, at his website, lovethehv.com. And you can check out Lost Pets of the Hudson Valley at lostpetshv.org and on Facebook as well. Bentley, thank you so much for being here and for creating such an amazing resource for our area with Lost Pets and all of your beautiful photography. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate the opportunity. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I wish you both the best with your podcast. It's exciting.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our listeners. We hope you enjoyed listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the Valley Girls, please follow our podcast from our show page on whichever platform you listen from. Leave a rating and review and share our podcast with others. We appreciate it so much. To stay up to date with the Valley Girls and for more content, you can find us at valleygirlspodcast.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Links to all our social media accounts are in the show notes. We just really appreciate all of this. And also, you can connect to all of our social media through our homepage at valleygirlspodcast.com. So thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
The music for this episode is by Robert Burke Warren, entitled Painting a Vast Blue Sky, and can be found on his album Redheaded Friend, available on iTunes and Spotify, and at the link in the show notes.